We're very excited to show you the Sage Intacct solution today and what specifically we've customized for blood donation centers. Sockeye is a Sage Intacct partner, and we work with many clients across many industries, but we specialize in construction and nonprofit clients. So really with the complex workflows, that's our jam, and blood banks and blood donation centers fall into that category. So before I get started, I'll introduce myself, introduce Esther, and hand it over to Esther. We have, an hour of your time blocked today. We don't anticipate it'll take that long. We think it's probably going to be a maybe 30-minute demo. And so we really want to make sure your questions are answered and that this is just the start of a conversation. We'll show you a couple high-level value adds that have really worked well for some of our clients. And there's so much more. So we'd love to follow up after and have an individualized demo for your team. So I'm Nicola. I'm the account manager at Sockeye, and I manage all of our accounts with nonprofits, both during implementation, but beyond, to ensure success over time. And I'll introduce Esther. Esther's a CPA and a consultant on our team. She also leads our not-for-profit division. So a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience. And yeah, I think, Esther, with that, is there anything I'm missing?
No.
Got any questions? We'll insert them in, and hopefully this will be really valuable. It's going to be a lot of visual and just walking through and to really be able to imagine your day-to-day workflow.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to dive right in the system. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see that screen, press share. All right, so just to make sure y'all can see my Sage Intacct login screen. Is it showing up, Nicole? All right, cool. Okay. So as Nicole mentioned, we're going to be doing a presentation of Sage Intacct, kind of giving you a tour and an overview of all the features, some of the features that are within it. We're going to start with a really broad introduction to Sage Intacct and look at some of those basic features that make it user-friendly and easy to access and navigate. I like to start here at this login screen because it really emphasizes how accessible Sage Intacct is. As long as you have a web browser and an internet connection, you can really access your accounting software anywhere in the world. So once I have my login information in there, I can go ahead and log in. And when we log into the system, we can land on a page of our choosing. So we can pre-configure the page that's important to us when we're going into the system to do our work or to do our reviews or to run our reports. So in this case, I have it configured to land on this on an example CFO dashboard. So dashboards are very configurable, they're very customizable. Intacct comes with a group of them that you can start with, but it's really, that all is what it is, the starting point. You can really make dashboards your own in many different ways. So this is just, like I said, an example of one CFO dashboard, and your CFO dashboard could look very different. Navigating Intacct is also very user-friendly. So when we navigate, we have access to all our modules and applications that our permissions allow us to access all on this one screen here. So we can reach every feature that we need to be able to use throughout the system in one menu. Granted, there's a lot showing up on mine. This isn't necessarily what every user is going to see when they log in. So my user has permissions to everything, so I can see everything. But if we talk about like an accounts payable technician, they may only need access to the accounts payable module and to be able to create bills and some other features as well. So when they log in, that's all they would see on this screen. But for those of us who have a lot of features that we have access to, Intacct has given us some tools to be able to make that navigation easier to do. And one of those is using the favorites menu here. So favorites allows you to take a feature within a system that you access quite a bit and makes it it reduces the amount of clicks to get to that feature. So for example, maybe a repeat technician wants to be able to get to their bills quicker. All they have to do is come in and put a star next to the bills, and now it shows up on their favorite screen. So when I come and then click on the bills here, it brings me to the bills list to be able to do my adding, paying, editing, whatever I need to do to the bills area. If later on my roles no longer require me to use that feature a lot, I can then come back in here and unselect it and remove it from my favorites to keep it clean. The other feature Sage Intacct has to make it user-friendly is the bookmarks feature. So this allows you, just like how bookmarks work on a web browser, This allows you to bookmark certain pages within the system. So when we come in and look and have a bill that we look at, and we want to be able to mark this bill to come back to later when we've done some research or we had to close down for the day and want to start here again tomorrow, we can come in here and just like our favorite cooking recipe, we can go ahead and bookmark it to come back to. It gives us a suggested name, but we can always make that more relevant to what we're actually wanting to name it for reference purposes. Once you press save, that bookmark gets added to a bookmarks bar. So then if we navigate away or close down for the night and reboot in the morning, it's easy to come back to where you left off using the bookmarks. And so then once you're done with that bookmark, you no longer need access to this easy access to the bill and you want to keep your bookmarks tab clean. You can then easily just delete that bookmark from the area and it's gone, and you can reduce that clutter there. Another really neat feature Sage Intacct has is this help and support up here. This is a wealth of knowledge articles that you have access to with just a click away. And when you do click on it, you're able to always get help on the page you're actually on in the moment. So when I click on help on this page on the bill screen, it brings me to their knowledge base of all their bills articles. So we have the ability to look at view bills, which is where we're at in the bill screen. But this isn't really where we need help. It also gives us the full chart, the full table of contents for all the bill articles that they do have on the different aspects of creating, editing, paying a bill. And then also related topics that may not necessarily have to do with bills, but may be related to that topic as well. So it makes it really easy for us to be able to navigate through the Help Center and find the information we're looking for when we're stuck or forgot how to do a certain process within Intacct. Another feature we have within the knowledge articles is being able to search. So maybe we didn't really want to learn about bills. We're more interested about how ACHs work in the system. Oops. When we type in that keyword, it's going to find all our articles that have that keyword in it. And that way we can browse those articles and make sure that and see which ones are relevant to what we're looking for. The other option we have for using the Help Center is navigating like we would Sage Intacct itself. Up here, they have all the applications and you can browse through them like the applications menu in Sage Intacct and find articles related to the different modules. And then you can do your research from there, read about what the different features and kind of remember how things work if it's been a while since you've done something. Okay, so now we're going to come and look back at our dashboards. We just saw some of these features that help us navigate. So let's actually look at what we can do from the dashboard itself. So as I mentioned earlier, this is an example of the CFO dashboard. We're looking at a number of dashboards during our presentation today, but this is one we're going to start on. So let's talk about some of the components we actually see on this dashboard that makes being able to view our data really easy. The top ones up here are what we call performance cards. And these personally are my favorite because what they do is they bring either one bit of information from the system or a group of information that is really relevant to you and puts it in one place, really big and bold, and allows you to compare it to another metric, such as prior year or prior month, or even versus a budget if you want to. So when we look at these different performance cards, we can see that it's a mixture of financial information and non-financial information. But when we're looking at these, we not only have that number there, we also can drill down into it. So when I drill down into that expenditures number, it gives me all of the expenditures for that period that make up the numbers that we're seeing on that dashboard up there. So then I can go from here and I can drill down even further from the dashboard and through the subledger and GL into the actual bill itself that's creating one of the transactions that's rolling up into that performance card. So that way, if I'm doing research, if I'm trying to clean up things for month end, year end, or audit, I can easily go to the transactions that might be causing our financials trouble and being able to edit them from there. So like an example, when we look at this bill, we're missing our documentation. So maybe there's an AP bill, PDF or something I have from the vendor that I want to make sure I add on here as I'm getting ready for audit or other month-end activities. And so I can go ahead and drag that back up from my desktop or shared drive, put it in the attachment box here. And now I can view that backup whenever I want to by viewing this attachment, which will download that file and I can open it up and look at it. So it gives you easy access to the backup documentation you have for each of your bills. Another feature within Sage Intacct, what we call Collaborate. This is really similar to a social media feed and can replace having to communicate via email or chat outside of the system. So in this case, maybe I want to let someone know that I actually added that attachment so someone doesn't have to try to go back and do it later. So I can go ahead and tag Carla Grace, who's my controller in this environment. Let her know I added the documentation for this bill. So now I can go ahead and share that. And now this communication is, it stays with this transaction. And so when I tag Carla on this, she's actually going to get an email saying that I tagged her on a collaborate comment. Give her a link, and she can go directly to this transaction. See what my comment is. She can also then comment to it, like it, and even add files or other links to this social feed to be able to continue that conversation. And so once I'm done in here, I can go ahead and press post or submit to save that attachment, and then I can go back to my dashboard. So as I mentioned earlier, performance cards don't have to just be financial data. We can also track non-financial data, which we call statistical accounts. So those statistical accounts can be any non-financial piece of data that's really important to you. And I have a few examples here, such as blood units collected this month and also blood units sold this month. So we can bring those into the system, compare them to prior months, have really obvious visualizations of this is if we're doing well or not. And then we can also use that data, such as these two different units, and then be able to create ratios. Or we can mix the statistical data with the financial data and be able to create the ratios that have that sort of financial numbers, such as the average cost per unit of blood. And so these make it really easy to see where you're at with your KPIs in any given time, because the dashboard is in real time, so it's updating. If someone does the transaction in the background and I run an update here, it's going to go ahead and update for that real-time transaction. There's no real delay in that. All right, so next on this dashboard, we're going to look at the approval workflows. So we're able to bring our approval workflows into the dashboard so we can easily view where we're at with our inbox when we log in for the day to see how many approvals might need to be done, where we're at with the approvals that have started, and go ahead and even finish the approvals from the dashboard. So we can take, for example, these purchasing approvals that are available. So these are purchase orders that were submitted by our requester, Philip Marlowe, and are ready for us to take a look at and see if they're ready to be posted into the system to be able to actually order that inventory. So I can go ahead and view it from here and take a look at it. Looks like it's missing an attachment, and maybe I need Philip to really add the attachment of why they need these different items for their inventory. So I can go ahead and press decline here and ask them to please add attachment, and go ahead and press decline. And so that's going to go back into a decline state, and Philip's going to see that he needs to edit that transaction, add what's required, and then resubmit it for approval. On the flip side, when something is able to be approved, let's say we're not going to worry about the attachment on this one and just look at the coding. Looks like, okay, these are fine. That's good coding, and the prices look right. We can go ahead and approve this transaction. Again, we can leave a comment if we want to, not necessarily required, and then press approve. And so now our approval workflow is empty, so we know we can move on with our next process for the day. And then once we refresh our dashboard, this would also refresh to show that it's also empty. We can also do different types of approvals. So there's not just purchasing, but there's also journal entries, payment approvals, which is like check printing, and then also AP bill approvals, which is similar to purchasing. They all work very similar. So if we look at the journal entries, we can see what journal entry Carla Grace submitted for approval. And that journal won't actually post until it's been approved. And then just like purchasing, we can decline it, go back to Carla, she can edit it, make changes, and then come back and resubmit it for approval. So next on the dashboards, let's take a look at these different graphs and reports we have. So Intacct has a plethora of graphs and reports that you can create and customize, really depending on what data is important to you to look at. We have a few examples here of some revenue graphs. We have some data broken out, and that's not just by GL account, but also broken out by the different dimensions. So we can break out our revenues and expenses by our locations, by our departments, by our different sites that are located around different areas, and really be able to compare their financial and non-financial data by using those dimensional reports. So these are just some examples of those types of reporting that's available. What's also nice about these graphs and reports is that they are just like the performance cards, they're also drillable. So they come back up to this revenue graph here. When I click on the graph itself, it brings me to the list of what is actually the revenue numbers are based off the different revenue GL accounts or items that are available to post to. So I can easily see what my RBC revenue is compared to my platelets or plasma. And the same goes for being able to compare our actual numbers to our budget. So down here we have a report that allows us to see what our budget is compared to our actuals and what our remaining budget is for the year for those different numbers. And just like everywhere else, they're drillable all the way down to the transaction. These are some of the features that come with using dashboards within Sage Intacct. Overall, dashboards give users both high-level visibility into what's happening within the organization in real time and the ability to drill down and research specific items directly from the dashboard. All right, so now we're going to look at some features that are really important for our blood donation centers using Intacct. To start, we're going to move to another dashboard here. And we're going to look at how we can run an invoice using information imported from a transfusion inventory management software like Wellsky. So Sockeye has developed a process to help specifically for blood donation centers like you to help be able to bring the information from your software like Wellsky into Intacct to be able to make the invoicing process better. So this is just a simple dashboard to kind of show what's happening with the different sales and invoicing processes. And we're going to first take a look at our actual invoice list here. And drilling down into our order entry module, where it shows a list of all the invoices we so far have imported into the system. So these aren't being created manually. They're actually being created through an import down from here that's being brought in from the process that we've developed to bring that information out of Wellsky. And so once they're in the system, then we're able to run those invoice details. And there's lots of options for how we can run those invoices, what they look like for the formatting. And so these are just some examples of what those could look like. And so when I run the invoice details, it's going to prompt me for a few things. It's going to want to know if I want to run for all customers, for what month. So we're doing our billing for February, so we'll go ahead and filter that down for February. And then we can also do for certain customers as well. We don't have to do for all customers. In this case, I'm going to so you can see it. But if you just needed to get an invoice from a customer, that's easily done through here as well. And so once we're here, we can go ahead and press print or email. So we're going to print it in this case, which will actually bring it to a PDF, but you also have the option to email it directly out of the system to your customers. So if you wanted to do that option instead, we can create custom email templates so you can have customized messages reach your customers when they receive these invoices, or you can have a generic one that they're all are using. But it's definitely an option to be able to email directly out of the system. For now, I'll go ahead and print so you can see what the PDF would look like when they come out of the system. Okay, so this is an example of one of those PDFs. And this is a detailed invoice. So it's bringing all the information we took out of Wellsky, your order numbers, your item IDs, your different unit prices, and then bringing them into, hold on, sorry, let me bring that back a little. Putting them into a format that you can then send off to your customer in a very detailed way. So, and like I said earlier, we ran it for all our customers. It's gonna be one customer per page here, or multiple pages for those that have a lot of billing that we're doing. But like I said, this is a very detailed invoice for those customers who have that requirement for the details. These aren't the only requirement. They aren't the only way to run invoices, though. We also have the ability to run invoice summaries. So this takes that same really detailed information and summarizes it for our customers who really require just a real broad overview of what we're billing for. And so since we're doing this for February, we're going to go ahead and bring it back the day before that. And then let's do it. I know I billed for the 1st of February. And just like in the invoice details, we can filter it down for customer if you just wanted to run this for one customer or just a handful of customers. In this case, once again, we'll go ahead and just view them as is with all the customers that are available. And so this is what it looks like before we bring it to PDF format. Once we export the PDF, it's going to look very similar to the detailed one we just looked at. This right now is just kind of showing us the raw data that's going to be generated when we export the invoice. So once again, we have it by customer. We have the invoice number on there that was created in Intacct when we imported the data. But instead of having all that detailed information, we're able to summarize it by the different items and then be able to split out our sales quantity versus returns that happened during that time. So then they can get a net amount of what's actually owed at the end of the month or middle of the month. And then we have another option, there's actually another invoice that is available that can summarize it by order rather than item. I don't have that up here to show, but that's another invoice our customers used for when their customers want to have an invoice summarized by order rather than item and not necessarily the detailed information. So there's lots of options we have for being able to format and process those invoices needed for those transfusion product sales. Okay, so next, we're going to look at managing non-transfusion product inventory. But right now, if you have any questions about invoicing for sales from Sage Intacct, please feel free to put them in the chat now.
I see one. How does the data come into Intacct from Wellsky?
It's a good question. So the data comes in as a CSV file, and that's how it gets exported out of Wellsky the same way. And then when it lands into a place to on your either server or computer, then it is an easy import as a CSV file.
Cool. That probably answers that. And another one I see is in Sage Intacct, once the CSV is uploaded, how do you create the invoice? What do you have to do?
It's another great question. So the invoices are actually created automatically once the information is imported. We've already, during implementation, we've already pre-configured what your invoice should look like format-wise. So then the system just does all the rest once that file's been imported.
Okay. Give it a beat in case there's anything else. Right. I think that covers it.
Perfect. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to manage non-transfusion products inventory, such as your medical supplies or nutritional supplies within Sage Intacct. We're going to receive, maintain, and distribute inventory all from one dashboard that would be used by your warehouse manager. So we're going to go and start with receiving our inventory. Through purchasing, we're able to receive our inventory into the system and create back orders when needed. So in here, we're able to drill down into our purchasing module through the dashboard and see what actual purchase orders are ready to receive. So warehouse manager is getting the inventory and they're going to know which ones to come in here and receive based off that information that's given to them from the vendor they're purchasing it from. So in this case, we'll go ahead and we're going to convert this one into a purchase order receiver. So taking that purchase order, which isn't posting anywhere in the system, it is marking that inventory as on order in the inventory module so that the warehouse manager knows that, but it doesn't actually post anywhere in the system until we get to this step. So when our warehouse manager is getting ready to receive inventory, they can take a look at what items are actually received, whether it's their hemostats or needles or any other sort of supplies or blood bags they need for the different collection centers. And then they can verify that the quantities that they actually received matched what was in the original PO. When they don't match, when shipments are being done separately and we want to be able to honor cutoff periods, we can partially receive those different quantities. In this case, maybe we only got 40 of those. And maybe you only got 10 of these hemostats. So then we can say, all right, but we received all 13 of our, what item is this? Of our culture tubes. So we can say, all right, received all those. We're still missing some hemostats and this other item here, which is our needles. So with that case, let's go ahead and we'll keep this in February, which is kind of where we're doing most of our transaction acting today. And then date matters because what this does, this allows us to know what date it's hitting our inventory subledger. Because when your warehouse manager or your inventory manager presses post here, it will in the background, the system will know that we need to increase the quantity and value of our inventory for those items in the inventory subledger. And then it will roll up into the GL and update your inventory balances in real time based off the transaction that's happening here. So that way your balance sheet balances and inventory subledger will be in balance after this transaction is complete. Go ahead and press post. And so because I did not fully receive that PO, it then creates a back order. And so with the back order, I can either receive the rest of it, or if the order got canceled, I can go ahead and delete it or reverse it. So it gives me options to handle that back order however I need to. So now that we received inventory into our system, we need to be able to maintain it. And we can use reports such as this inventory status report to do so. We can track how much our inventory has been used by our collection centers, what's on hold, what's on hand, and even what's on order at an easy glance using this report on this dashboard. So then our inventory manager can also drill down on these and really get more ideas of where these inventories actually are, whether on order, what transaction brought them on order, what transaction brought them on hand. So they have that ability to research directly from this report. We can also maintain our inventory through features such as cycle counts, which allows us to keep our inventory up to date based on actual inventory on hand. So we can distribute our count sheets to our warehouse employees, account and track what's in the warehouse. We're going to go ahead and take a look at a count that's already in process here. So when we resume that count, it shows us what inventory items were selected for counting. You don't have to count all the items in one count. You can decide what items you want to be counted either by selecting it manually or by doing it by warehouse as well. So we can also have different warehouses for inventory to be stored in, and even do transfers between those warehouses as needed. So once the count has been completed, so when your employees get the worksheet, you can print that out of here, send that off to the employees, do the actual count. They bring back those finished worksheets. You can then update these numbers for what they actually found in their warehouses. And when we press complete count, it then brings us to an option to be able to reconcile our books based off the actual counts in the warehouses. So what that means is that we're able to complete the cycle count, and in the background, Intacct is doing those updates for us, doing the adjustments for reducing quantities, increasing quantities with their values, and costs in the inventory subledger, which then rolls up to your balance sheet, and then also being able to track what quantity's been damaged and how much that's affecting your financials and your expenses. So that's really saving you not having to find those manual sheets that were filled out by your employees, doing those manual adjustments up front in the system and hoping that they match. This all does it all in one place for you. So there are also reports straight out of the box that give us insight on where inventory value is in physical counts as of specified dates. There's lots of different reports. I'm just going to show you one that really brings it all together. The inventory evaluation report here allows you to be able to tie your inventory subledger to your GL at any given point in time. We'll do it as of today. And you can also specify if you wanted to look for specific items, or in this case, we're going to look at a specific product line. So we're looking at just our medical supplies inventory. And then we can press view on here, and in real time, it's going to give us all our information for that item that has to do with its value. So we know what the last cost was, the quantity on hand, the unit cost, and then we can see what value is actually being brought up to the GL. So this report really helps us tie together what our subledger amounts are to our GL, and be able to do that, be able to reconcile and make sure those are always in balance. So the last piece we're going to go over is actually distributing our inventory. So we've been able to receive it through our purchase orders. We're able to maintain it, but we also need to get that inventory to our collection centers and our locations to be able to use it for their daily uses. So to do that, we're going to take a look at our inventory request forms. So in here, just like on our receiving, it's a very similar process where we're going to drill down to our order entry screen here that shows us what inventory has been requested. So these requests would come from collection center managers and come from other employees who are designated to be able to ask for those inventory items from your warehouse. And these requests are going to be going to your warehouse manager or warehouse employees to be able to fulfill those orders. And so when we take a look at one of these, We can view it and see if we have the inventory on hand. So when I go and look at one of these requests, I can say, all right, we got blood bags and cotton tip applicators that are being requested by this department in different locations. And I can easily see here what quantity they're asking for and what quantity is actually on hand. From this case, then I can go ahead and convert that to a request fulfillment. Let's say, I may have 34 in hand, but I'm not really ready to give all 34 or all 15 to this department for whatever reason. Maybe you're holding on to them for someone, or someone can be requesting them, or there's a big event coming up soon that you want to hold on to them for. You can go ahead and reduce that quantity, just like we did with the receiving, to only partially fulfill the request. And so it also lets us know that we have different amounts in different warehouses. We're going to blow through that for now because this is a test environment, but really in reality, we would want to make sure we have the right warehouses selected when we're doing these transactions. So we do have the different warehouses. We'll go ahead and reduce that one too, but we'll receive all of our unit specs. Okay, and we'll once again put this in February. Oops. And so the date here is going to be the date that hits our inventory subledger and our GL again, because once again, just like the receiver side, this is doing the opposite. This is looking for our quantity and values in our inventory subledger and balance sheet and reducing those to be able to take them out of there and keep your GL accurate to what actually your inventory balances are at the time. So the dates matter because that's going to be the date that it posts. Then we also have a shipping date option down here where if you wanted to track when you're actually going to be sending it to the warehouse, or they're going to, or sending it from the warehouse, and you're going to be receiving it to the collection centers, you could put a different date there if you wanted to track that. So at that point, we press post. And so just like in receiving, it went ahead and created a back order for us to be able to finish that fulfillment later when we're ready to release the rest of that inventory. But in the meantime, it's sitting there in the inventory that was requested and sent off to the collection center has been reduced from our inventory subledger and GL accounts. So that's how we receive, maintain, and distribute our medical supplies within Sage Intacct and keep our inventory subledgers balanced to our general ledger. Before we moved on to fixed assets, do we have any other questions about the inventory process within Sage Intacct? Nicole, have you seen any questions?
I don't see anything. Yeah,
Okay.
Let's move on.
Cool. So we got one more dashboard we're going to look at today, which encapsulates one other area of the system, and that's fixed assets. So this is an example of dashboard that your fixed assets manager or accountant in charge of fixed assets may be using to help do fixed assets or use the fixed asset features, keep an eye on what our fixed asset amounts are, and then also track depreciation from month to month. So we're going to start by actually adding a fixed asset into the module. And there's a few different ways to do that. I'm only going to show one because it's pretty similar across different ways. One way to do it is to be able to add it directly into the module itself. So if it was forgotten to be added earlier, you can always add it manually after fact. But what's really neat about the way this feature works in Intacct, you can add fixed assets directly through an AP bill or a purchase order. So you can add them as you're actually entering those transactions in the system. And that's what we're going to look at here, is adding that fixed asset through the AP bill. And so when I click on there, it actually just brings me to the AP bill screen. We'll go ahead and take a look at one that's already been added just to save time here. So Danforth Centers, we went ahead and added bought a new asset from the vendor. And when your AP team is entering those bills, they don't necessarily have to know what the asset is or what it's supposed to be used for. Don't need to know its asset class. All they need to know is they need to where to code it. And that's one single account that allows it to sit there as an asset to be capitalized until your fixed assets manager can come in and actually place that asset in service. So it makes it really easy to be able to bring in those assets for AP bills without having to have a lot of information, a lot of knowledge about fixed assets. And so once this bill has been created and posted and approved, if it's going through an approval process, it then shows up on our assets waiting to be placed in service list here. So that bill is brought into this view. We'll go ahead and drill down onto it. So if we had multiple bills, if there was a multiple transactions, or if we were actually doing construction and process and ready to capitalize that, this is also how this would work. So you could have multiple bills being coded to a construction and process project, and then capitalize it all at once when it's ready, and it'll track all the different bills that made up that capitalized asset. In this case, we're just looking at this one. And so when we're ready to do the, it already brought in some of the basic information from the AP bill, and we can go ahead and press place in service. And when we, at this point, we're going to add in what it is. Maybe we bought a whole blood share. And then we want to add the asset class. So the asset class, it helps determine where in the balance sheet it's going to fall for our balance sheet account, GL accounts, and it also can determine what the useful life of that asset is. You're not constantly having to add in useful life, so you can go ahead and select predetermined ones based off what you've decided the useful life is for that type of supply or equipment. You can also add in the salvage value if you want. There's a lot of different optional fields here that really allows you to do some precise fixed asset tracking. So you could have different serial numbers, asset tags. You can track different dimensions here. Let's say maybe this is going to be used by our mobiles department, and maybe actually brought into for our pop-up center. So it's going to be traveling around our different centers. So that way we can track where this asset's actually being used. We can set a different capitalization date if we want it to be different than the bill date. So this is actually bringing it in from the bill date. That's fine. We'll leave it there. Then you can also track leasehold improvements. So maybe if this is a building or that you're leasing and you want to track those, you can do that as well. And then also track different maintenance information. Again, those are all optional fields. So that's you only have to track as much as you want to for a fixed asset. Ready to place it in service, we press yes. It takes a minute for it to upload it into the module. And once it's complete, it then is going to be with the rest of your assets in that module, falling under the correct asset class. Now it's been added. When we refresh this page, this will be falling off there, and it'll be on our asset management list, our fixed asset reports. So next we can look at running depreciation directly from the system. It works pretty just as simple as adding an asset. When we want to post depreciation, because of all that work, because of the work we've already done when we added the asset with the useful life, the amount, the depreciation, if there's any salvage value, it's already looking at all that when it's running depreciation. So something that you don't have to do on the side, an Excel spreadsheet or manual calculations to figure out what that posting should be. And posting is pretty easy. It's going to automatically default to your next depreciable period. In this case, we're a little behind. We're in April of 22. That's fine. We'll go ahead and just post for that and keep going. So when we press this next button, it'll show us what the entry is going to be. So it's not just posting it blindly. So that way this gives a chance to review it, to make sure it actually looks accurate, make sure maybe there isn't an asset missing that we expected to be in there that got added. We can see what the asset classes are going to be, because it's a good graph there to show us. And we can also review the detailed posting data by class, make sure that this makes sense. The depreciation is going to code to the right dimensions. And it really just gives us that ability to do a really tight review before posting. So once we're done with our review, we can press post depreciation. It always likes to warn us to make sure our period is open. So we have the books open for this period. We can go ahead and continue. If we've closed the books, we can go back and open them to do this posting and then reclose them again afterward. And so from here, the system just does the rest. It's going to go ahead and do the calculation, do the posting, and then post that into the GL for us through the subledger. We don't have to stay on this page. We can keep working while it's doing that. And then once it's done, we can go ahead and then just refresh this page again, and it's going to show us our depreciation details on this depreciation expense on this report here. So we can just keep track of what our depreciation is from month to month, and be able to do any research we need to from there. So another feature that the fixed assets module has is being able to easily run year-end fixed asset reports. Whether we need it for our year-end close or audit or any other third-party reporting that wants to see our fixed assets, we can easily run the reports for the full year by using this roll forward report. I already have one generated for 2021, but we can always generate them for different years as needed. And when we click on this roll forward report, it gives us it generates a package for us that has all the reports we may need for a year end. So such as our depreciation expense report detail, we have our asset account report detail. It breaks out our assets by the different classes for when we need that as well. And it'll show you the beginning of the year, the additions and deletions, and then the end year-end balance, which is something that your auditors always love to have. So that comes right here at your fingertips with the roll forward report. All right, so that wraps up our fixed assets. And at this time, are there any questions that we have on invoicing, inventory, or fixed assets, or just Sage Intacct in general?
Okay, I do see one came in. So the accounting in Sage Intacct, can it be done in other currencies or multiple currencies at the same time, like the US dollar and Canadian dollar?
Yes, so Sage Intacct is a multi-currency system. It can be configured to either work in one specific transaction, one specific currency, such as USD or CAD, or it can be multi-currency where you can work in multiple different dollars.
Okay. And what kind of non-financial numbers can be tracked on the dashboard?
Really, any non-financial number you want. We're able to create full accounts the same way we create GL accounts. So if you want to track volunteer hours, you want to track employee headcount, that's all kind of talked about and figured out during implementation. So we can track whatever ones are important to you.
Cool. Those are good questions. Yeah, I think that if there's no other questions, I'll keep looking at it, but I think that wraps our day. Our goal really was to start the conversation, show you some of the system. There's so much more, and there's so much that you can customize to really help your day-to-day workflow. So thanks, Esther.
Yep, you're welcome. We can hang out for a minute or two in case people come
Let's
up
do
with more
it.
questions.
I'm particularly proud of the Wellsky integration.
It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Let's see anything. But yeah.
All right.
Questions, comments, concerns, next steps? Nothing, that's okay too. You know where to find us.
Yeah, I believe our emails are on the invites.
So
feel free to email too. Think of anything afterward.
Yeah, we'd love to look at it more specifically with you guys. Shall we sign off?
Yeah, I think we're gonna call it. Well, it's a pleasure presenting for you all today. Look forward to seeing any comments or other questions you may have come in through email. Don't hesitate to contact us.
Good. All right, bye.
Bye.